Well, let's unpack the story further. We're joined now by Lunga Dweba, who's a director at GI Advisory. He's also a former UN peacekeeper. Lunga, thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon. It's good to talk to you. I want to begin with that parliamentary Q&A session yesterday. The Defence Minister, Angie Motshekga, was there alongside officials from the SANDF. Some really burning questions from MPs about the nature of our deployment in the Eastern DRC. What did you make of the kinds of responses the Minister and the SANDF were able to provide, that South Africa is part of a wide range of peacekeeping missions, not only in the DRC, but other African nations as well?
Michelle, please allow me to pay my deepest respects to our fallen soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice in service of the African people, particularly the Congolese. And indeed, our thoughts are with their families. Now, I followed indeed the Q&A session yesterday, and one would not really get to understand how politicians will pose questions, particularly in a situation such as this one, as much as it is their responsibility to be asking questions. But I guess the Department of Defense and the SANDF in particular would not in any way be in a position to provide clear answers to certain questions. As a matter of fact, I was pleased by the suggestion that was made by the chairperson, Mr. Gigaba, who then suggested that it might work better if if the questions are asked in an arrangement where it is not in public. We might indeed be doing our duties, or politicians might be doing their duties to ask these questions, but there might be a risk involved indeed if detailed information were to be shared in public. Having said that, though, I think the leadership of both the SANDF and the Department of Defense have given some of important information that I think are suitable for all of us ears to hear. We have an idea of what is happening in the DRC right now. It even went to a point where we're informed that the bodies of the late soldiers would arrive in the country today. Michelle?
Yes, that's what we've been told all along, Lunga, that their remains would be repatriated today. I've just been in conversation with our reporter, Veronica Magwadi. We're trying to get the latest information on that repatriation process. And she says the last update she got from Sipiwe Dlamini from the SANDF is that all media will be invited once the remains are returned. He says there is coordination that is happening, but is unable to say more. Yes. I imagine this makes an already difficult situation for the families even worse, this lack of clarity, unless the families are getting a whole lot more clarity than the rest of the country.
Yes, indeed. I'm happy you're mentioning the families, Michelle. Well, from my understanding, this process follows established protocols in the military to honor the fallen soldiers, most importantly. But families are kept not just informed, but there's a structure, there's a formal structure that comprises the chaplains, social workers, and human resource personnel, who will then engage families from the moment the tragedy occurred. So it's not a question of them calling the families or speaking to them telephonically, but they will engage families physically. So my understanding would be, even though the majority of us might be in the dark, I doubt very much that the families do not know what is happening. Michelle?
Well, yeah, well, that gives us some comfort, doesn't it? That if the families are being kept in the loop. But Lunga, when you look back at how we handled the news of these 14 soldiers being killed in Eastern DRC, there was a lot of outrage about how government handled that announcement, about how how we reflected upon that as a nation. These soldiers that we have sent to the DRC for peacekeeping missions, fathers, husbands, brothers, dying in Goma in the way that they did.
Yeah.
Some people talked about flags having been flown at half-mast in South Africa, saying that should have been the case. Did we respond in the correct way as a country when the news first broke?
Yeah. Michelle, it would be incorrect of me in any way to say I think we did. I think we did not. As a matter of fact, when the statement came, was it on Saturday? The first statement, the information was out there already, but people knew that it's not their responsibility to speak. But as the statement came, some South Africans had an idea of what was happening in the mission area. So I think we could have done better in handling the situation. Whereas from what is happening now, the fact that the government does not necessarily inform us of what is happening, when will the aircraft depart? Is it departing from Goma or from the neighboring country? I think that part specifically is correct, considering the situation in the DRC right now. But generally, I think or in future, we would need to approve in how we engage, particularly the public, on these issues. Michelle?
And then your final comment, Lunga, just again on that parliamentary briefing that happened yesterday. The general there who was responding to questions, General Rudzani Mapwanga, he was talking about defense being used as a tool for enhancing diplomacy. He talked about the fact that all SADC members have contributed troops, and this is not a South African mission in the DRC, it is a SADC mission. Talk to us about that issue of defense being a tool of enhancing diplomacy.
Okay, so Michelle, of course, we are guided by public international law in how we implement both peacekeeping and peace enforcement missions. The interesting part about this particular engagement in the DRC is that it goes or it touches on both peacekeeping and peace enforcement. The first one that started in 2013 under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. What then happens is that diplomatically, as government leaders negotiate, which I understand that's one of the things that was mentioned by the presidential spokesperson. So they will then use military intervention, especially in a situation where there's instability. But in how then they use this military intervention, it will either be us or soldiers keeping peace in the mission area, or it will be them enforcing peace. It then is correct from the decision that was taken last week in the extraordinary summit that we have no other option but to prioritize negotiation, including non-state armed groups. In other words, any party that is involved in the conflict, you might do even better when you involve them. So you attend to the issue diplomatically by involving not just state forces, but you involve non-state actors as well, who are obviously aggrieved by the situation in the DRC. I think in a nutshell, that's what is meant, Michelle. Over.
Lunga Dweba, let me thank you for your time this afternoon, and thanks for your insights into this issue. Lunga is a former UN peacekeeper and a director at security firm GI Advisory. Just a note for you, we have been running that strap on your screen for some time now. The remains of those 14 soldiers killed in the DRC are meant to be repatriated today. We are in constant communication with the SANDF and will bring you any updates just as soon as we get them.